It's 3 o'clock.
We're having fun.
3 o'clock. I'm going to call the Board of Directors meeting together for Thursday, September 5th. Could we have a roll call, please? Rachel?
Councilmember Daughtry,
Present.
Mayor Frizzell,
Present.
Mayor Marine,
Here.
Councilmember Mead. We have him. Oh, joining right now. Thank you.
Here. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Councilmember Merrill.
I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Nearing.
Here, thank you.
Thank you. Labor Representative Norton.
Here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Peterson.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Roberts.
I'm here, thanks.
Thanks. And Councilmember Schweddy. Thank you. Chair, we do have a quorum of board members. For our board alternates, let's see here. We have Mike Gallagher in attendance in the audience. Councilmember Payne is online as well. And Mayor Matsumoto Wright, I see. We also have Councilmember Fulcher online as well. So Chair, that concludes roll.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the public comment. Each speaker has 3 minutes to provide comments. Anyone for in-room? Seeing none, we'll move on to remote attendees. Seeing none, then let's move on to presentations. First one is CEO Olgin Fritz to introduce the service ready. Service
Great.
change readiness. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to ask Roland and the team to come on up to the table, and we're eager today to report on our state of readiness to implement our service change on September 14th and September 16th. We also are excited to share some initial observations. As everybody here knows, the light rail system opened to Linwood last Friday, and it has now been operating incident-free for 6 whole days. So we're excited about that. It's a good initial opening. We'll share some impressions. I've got a few of my own, and then I'll turn it over to Roland and the team. But I think the first thing that's important to emphasize is just that the launch was successful. It's launched safely. It's reliable. They haven't seen any issues with performance in the system. The only thing I'm hearing from my counterparts at Sound Transit is they're working to get their headway management dialed in, so those trains are actually every 8 minutes. And that takes practice with the drivers, the operators, but they're working on that. And if that's the major problem they're experiencing, then that is a very good problem to have. We saw a real strong surge of ridership over the weekend, starting on Friday. And we're still waiting for initial ridership numbers, but we saw a corresponding bump on the Orange Line Friday, and through the weekend we had an over 50% increase in Orange Line ridership on Friday, and that's looks like it's continuing. The Ride Store made it in under the wire. We moved the Ride Store staff on the 28th, and they were open for business on the 29th, which was a day earlier than I thought they might open. So that was great. And they saw as well a big surge of customers on Friday and Saturday, and again on Tuesday. So we did a huge business in marketing and selling new Orca cards. So we're seeing that response to the system. The first weekend of service, the garage was pretty much full on a regular basis at Linwood. We saw a lot of use of the other garages down the line. On Tuesday, the first commute day, the garage was at 70% occupancy in Linwood. So that is still quite a bit. Anyway, so far so good. It's over to us now to implement the restructure starting on the 14th, and we're super excited about that. And with that, I'd happily hand it over to Roland to add any observations you may have and sort of move on into the presentation.
Sure. Thanks, Rick. Yeah, lots of excitement. Rick shared a lot of the, the high points about what we saw on the rail and the garage and just kind of the energy around it. a little bit more just about the Ride Store specifically. Over $9,000 in Orca sales over the weekend, which was a huge spike. I think 317 new Orca cards. And if I'm recalling the data, a heavy emphasis on seniors that were getting new cards. And that's, that was part of what we expected light rail to deliver, was just this huge interest in a new mode, and people who weren't considering themselves transit users before are now suddenly saying, I'm going to try that. And so the Ride Store was really seeing the impact of that. In terms of the bus ridership, Rick mentioned the Swift line, certainly seeing Orange Line, just this big surge. Over 3,000 boardings on Friday, the day of the launch, which is 77% over the previous Friday. Saturday, similar, up 59%. And the day after Labor Day, which isn't always the biggest day, but still a 26% increase over the previous Tuesday. So really strong numbers just in the early going. It really interesting on how is it impacting the overall ridership balance across our entire system. And so what was interesting is on the inter-county commuter services that we see crossing the county boundary, we actually saw a drop versus what we would normally see on that day. And I think they said they're down 36% from the previous Tuesday. That's a pretty substantial drop. That means people are making different choices. And it wasn't just people staying away from transit. They were staying away from those commuter routes. There was an increase on the local service. So the routes that we, as advertised, we haven't even restructured our service yet to really intentionally feed this. And yet already a 7% increase just on the local routes that are currently feeding Linwood Transit Center. So, that is telling us there's, just by kind of water finding its level here, the system is really responding as we anticipated it would when you provide this big incentive for people to get off of I-5. So that was really interesting. Rick mentioned some of the, anecdotal observations we're seeing about the, complications just in terms of operations at the facility. There's going to be some things we need to work out, and we'll work with Sound Transit in the coming weeks and months to get after those. The traffic on 46th is one of the biggest ones, and both pedestrian traffic, use of crosswalks, people finding the most effective way to get from point A to point B as they're moving between garage, bus, rail, and then the signage for cars as they're going through that facility and wanting to really clearly direct them in the most expedient way to get to the garage before they get down in the middle of our business where we're trying to move buses around. So, and we're going to be studying that. Melissa's got some research that's going on from planning that's going to be looking into that carefully, and we'll be coming up with proposed solutions. Outreach has been busy as well. Chelsea was saying, we have this huge excitement around the connection on Friday. Lots of activity over the weekend. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the presentation of, looking forward to this next big push over the next 10 days or so, or 9 days as we work toward our launch. So lots going on. And now it's our moment over the next few days here as we get to the finish line on the network restructure. So we'll see if I can advance to the next one. So, recall we came back at the beginning of August. We had an extensive briefing for the board on the customer facing side of this. What are we doing in this restructure? What's the BRT network look like? Where are we connecting directly to light rail? What's the restructure of our express service doing? What's the local service frequency increase? Where do we have new routes? What's going on with Zip, with DART, with Vanpool? Really everything oriented around taking advantage of this big new investment and leveraging that really for those who live and work in Snohomish County. So today we're going to really talk about what are we doing to deliver all that on the back end? What is this lift like for the agency, and confirming our readiness to deliver. So the key messages are about the scale of what we're doing. This is going to be really big. We're going to cover the areas that you see here on the screen, covering workforce, our fleet and facilities, what's going on with Link Shuttle and the bus bridge in case the rail is not available, our customer support, day of coordination on the day of launch, and then how we're going to follow up and monitor after this network change happens. So we'll cover all those at a pretty quick clip. I'm going to introduce Jim first, and as I do that, I also want to just say thanks to him for being a strong leader for the agency over the past year plus, as he's helped to really pull together critical teams from all departments of the agency. There really isn't a function here at Community Transit this hasn't touched in some way. And Jim, in partnership with the strong program team out of planning and our CME group and other areas, has really helped to lead that. And that's a lot of why we're ready to go this week. So.
Hey, thank you, Roland. As Roland mentioned, most of this work, and as many of you know, has been a culmination of a lot of hard work over a long period of time. And I spent a considerable amount of time reflecting on what we've done. And in doing so, I'll just start with, I've been humbled by the effort that everyone's put forth to get us to this point. It was shortly after the launch of our Swift Green Line that our very own Treva Kozlowski scheduled a 2024 and beyond meeting on my calendar. And I remember a couple of things went through my mind. The first was, it's 5 years out, Treva. The second was, she must have been watching Toy Story with the grandkids and listening to Buzz Lightyear say to infinity and beyond. But in all seriousness, when I asked her about it, she said, Jim, it'll be here before you know it. And she was right. We've covered a lot of ground since then, from regional integration, internal coordination, and realizing some dependencies we have on capital project schedules, staffing level reports, and smart sheets. There's no shortage of smart sheets around here. Anyways, let's not forget surviving during that time of global pandemic. So needless to say, we've come a long way. Since then, and starting in October 2023, we started up a 2024 network program implementation team. And that's been co-led by Treva, myself, Noah Tunick, our Director of Planning and Integration, a couple other members from planning. I want to give a shout out to Sophie Luton and Melanie Hill, our project manager. We aligned efforts and promoted coordination to ensure the successful network restructure. Some of the work is still in progress, and we're going to talk about that today. But in general, we're all very excited about this effort and proud to be a part of it. Okay. All right, I want to just mention that we've staffed, we've trained, and the work is assigned and the shifts are scheduled. Quick note on recruiting. We're either fully staffed or almost fully staffed in some critical roles that we identified for the successful implementation. This includes coach operators. I want to give a shout out to Danielle Arceo and her recruiting team for helping us get to this point. It was no small feat, and a tip of that to her and them. We're also fully staffed with dispatchers, supervisors, mechanics, and ambassadors, with one exception being our transit security officers. There's a couple of vacancies, but recruitments have been initiated for them. Training, we're happy to report that we reached 100% training as of August 30th last week, and we built in time to allow for makeup days if necessary. We've conducted a series of bids, which is normal for any service change, and where our employees get to choose the work that we built out. The coach operator bid was completed the first week of August. The dispatcher, August 30th. Supervisors, 100% completed as of August 14th. And then our contract service providers completed their bids, and their training is also near complete. Okay. Oh. Thank you. All right, vehicles. They're on hand and ready to turn, stop, and go, quoting Mike Suela. Large thanks to him and his team. We don't currently have any concerns. We know Illuminator updates are near complete and being double checked. We started, this is some of the work in progress. We started with 568 bus stop flags to update and have updated 483 to this point, leaving 85. We don't have any concerns about this, but it has been identified as critical work and expected to be completed by the 14th. There's a short window there. That's intentional. Big thanks to JJ and our facilities team for their work on that. Swift Blue Line expansion, the connection here to Link at 185th and North Shoreline Transit Center. Thank you to Christopher Severa for his work to ensure a smooth transition there. And as previously mentioned, training is completed. However, we've offered additional training to our operators who might be interested in a refresher or just more familiarization there in general. It is optional. As mentioned, the pedestrian pathway at LCC has been completed well ahead of the Link Light Rail launch. And wayfinding, just special comment here. We've been communicating, informing, educating our staff and our customers. It was reported by the project manager, Melanie Hill. Thank you very much. That everything on the CT side is quote golden, and that information we provided to ensure proper wayfinding through our digital experience is accurate, mainly for trip planner data. Ride Store's been mentioned. Special thanks to Sarah Belfour for her work on that. I'll test myself here. All right. Link Shuttle, just real quick, Link Shuttle, I want to explain that it's a series of buses that we're going to deploy in support of the Link Light Rail in the event there's any disruptions to that service. There's a couple of occurrences, one being planned, might be for maintenance, and we're trying to keep those to the weekends so we can provide the most reliable and regular service to support them. But in the event that there is an emergency, we're going to build off of the planned bus bridge response or Link Shuttle response. Those emergencies might include something like power outages. We're finalizing guidance documents such as the concept of operations. We've finalized workflows. Thank you, Deepika, and consolidated department procedures to support the deployment of a bus bridge. We're very glad that everything's going well for our Link Transit partners and hope it stays that way, but we're planning for the worst in the event that they may need our help. Wendy Bannister is our project manager for this work, and I just want to give a shout out to her and say excellent job. This work has been done in partnership with King County Metro and Sound Transit. We're all committed to doing the very best we can if and when they need us. The Link operations will be new to our region and new to us. And we're currently collaborating, committed to collaborating with our ATU leadership team to ensure we all learn together. Testing and operational readiness continues to be a priority of ours in operations. We conducted a full test of the Link Shuttle on Saturday, August 24th. Our staff became familiar with the route, the procedures, and the operation of the Link Shuttle. We needed to do this in addition to regular service, so it was done on an OT. Thank you, Roland, for approving that. And shout out to our transportation team, the coach operators, the dispatchers, the supervisors, and the management staff for facilitating that test in addition to preserving regular service. Next slide. I'm gonna hand it over to Chelsea.
And for those of you, it's not on. Can you hear me now? Yep. For those of you that I haven't met, I'm Chelsea Aguero. I'm the Community Engagement Program Manager, and I've been helping to project manage the communications and outreach around this effort. You heard from Jeff last month in great detail about all the many, many ways that we are telling people about this service change. So we just wanted to touch on a few key pieces now. As Roland alluded to at the beginning, we talked with thousands of people at the night markets on Friday. We were deployed at Shoreline North, Mount Lake Terrace, and Linwood City Center Station. And we also had street teams out on Friday and Saturday. So that's people out in the field, riding buses at transit centers, helping people, letting them know about the changes. We had we're hearing excitement about light rail and about the further connections that people will have on September 14th. We've also seen a lot of increases in trip planning and visits to our website following light rail opening and all of our efforts that we've described previously. So customers are receiving information and continue to receive information in many ways. Up here on the screen, you can see one of the print rider alerts that we have out on buses, and then there's specific ones with maps at stops. We've been at a lot of events, and many people are visiting the website. We've also got a series of social media posts and blogs that continue to go out, as well as email updates through our Gov Delivery email lists. We also are providing reactive support. So the ride store is now open. People can come in and ask questions. They can call. We're seeing that happen. A lot of people requesting kind of personalized trip planning, either through the website or directly through calls to the call center. And we will have a heavy staff presence in the field the 14th through the 20th. So knowing changes are happening on the 14th, we'll have people deployed at transit centers. And that will continue through that week. We expect that to sort of fade off towards the end. Most people should know that changes have occurred towards the end of that week, but we know that people are traveling at these times, so we're trying to catch people at different times. And then we will continue answering customer questions as they come in. And with that, I will turn it back.
Okay, our plans are ready, and on the day of, we'll be monitoring, communicating, and coordinating where we may need to. Our standard practice on service change weekends includes 3 scheduled meetings, one at 9:30, one at 11, one at 1 p.m. This will be carried out throughout the weekend. As a reminder, Saturday and Sunday, we're implementing the local system, and Monday, the express system launches. Part of our program team's efforts included the full integration of this work into our service change schedule. And I think Roland mentioned this earlier, that in one way or another, everyone at Community Transit has played a part or contributed to this network restructure. So internally and where necessary, externally, our stakeholders, we will all be regularly monitoring the system performance over the next 6 months so that we can inform recommendations to the March service change. We're currently coordinating very heavily with Sound Transit and King County Metro on a lot of matters. This includes security. We're trying to ensure mutual awareness as well as collaboration where it is needed. We'll continue to work with Sound Transit to share information, insights, and customer feedback. We won't let the collaboration with the regional partners end in September. And in closing, I just want to assure everyone that the work remains in great hands, and we're all very honored to be a part of this history in the making.
Great. So we covered a lot there. I guess hope you're getting a sense of the scale of this, not only from a customer facing perspective, but just how big a lift this is for the agency. But really everything is coming together here. And I think the message you're hearing is things are on track. We're ready to go. We will absolutely be keeping the board informed as we go forward. And it's going to be an exciting couple of weeks coming up here. So back to you.
So that more or less concludes our presentation, our first presentation. I did want to emphasize a couple of things. This monitoring and adaptation mindset. I think I said this at the August board meeting. We can't be 100% sure that we got this network right. We planned it over the last 2.5 years. A lot of it and a lot of the engagement was during the pandemic. So some of that was an academic and theoretical exercise. So we're going to find out, and we have positioned ourselves to be able to watch closely and adapt if necessary. We are going to be in a growth mode next year. Next month, we'll take up the proposed budget, and you'll see plans to expand service at the March service change and again at the September service change. Melissa, if she was at the table, would tell you her staff is already hard at work at the March service change. So, you know, if we see major fatal flaws in what we roll out next week, we'll address those as adeptly as we can. But we're going to be focused more on, you know, looking and evaluating for changes at the September service change next year. So either way, it's going to be an iterative process. I'll close again by just thanking the staff for their efforts and recognizing their efforts. You know, I had a lot of memories crammed into my head on Friday, and among them that was most poignant was the ride store staff. They moved, you know, Wednesday night. They opened Thursday. They got slammed on Friday, and they were delighted. They were exhausted. But that, you know, the feeling of being able to pull all that off and serve so many people and make a difference in so many people's lives was really palpable. So that was exciting. I'll finish by emphasizing Roland's point, that intersection and that roadway through the transit center is going to be challenging. The combination of people, transit vehicles, HOVs coming off the freeway, SOVs coming in from the arterial is a complicated mix, and it's going to bear watching. And so we'll continue to keep you updated on how that's working as well. So that concludes our report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Two things. One, so it's 70% parking on Tuesday. I'm looking forward to seeing that going down to 50% with a 70% increase on our buses. That's what I'm looking forward to. The other thing is I got a lot of calls this weekend for people riding light rail from Lake Stevens. One of them was my mayor looking for trip guidance. I asked him what the hell he's calling me for. But I guess he used it to go down and catch a plane to DC. So we'll see how that went. One of the comments that he made to me was that, well, it's going to take me with the 20 stops from Linwood to the airport. It's going to take me the same amount of time as if I drove. I said, yeah, but you're not paying for parking. Oh, yeah. So I think he did take light rail. Excited. I'm excited to people that I'm talking to are taking light rail all weekend. They were going down to the concert. They were, they were just doing all kinds of stuff and they're all taking light rail. I was just like, whoa, really? Lake Stevens, really? They did.
So I have some raves and praises and then maybe some things we need to work on. But, so I rode it last night. We went to, the four of us left Linwood and went to the stadium station to watch a concert. And, ran into Melissa at the ride store where we were filling our Orca card, and buying new Orca cards for those who didn't have them. It was kind of cool to run into you there. And then, but getting off the HOV lane, you can't get there from here. There is no way to get to the garage without going completely out of the system, back on a road in Linwood. It was like, and you can't, we had to take a U-turn. People were taking U-turns. It was just, it was crazy. And then, of course, some people try to take a right to go into the drop off. Well, that doesn't get you into the garage. So they'd come out of there and they're still looking for a way. Fortunately, I knew from having gone to the ribbon cutting, because I had parked in the garage. So finally got to the garage. We ended up parking at the top, which is good. It was about 3:30 or so. And so it was pretty much full up to the roof, and still had some parking. And then ended up going down there, and on the way back, we even left a little bit early so we didn't have that big of a rush. What I did notice on the way back, especially because there's a lot more people, is that we tapped, but not many did. So when how the stadium station is you look at their taps, 4 of them, 2 on either side, and I'm just watching people walk right by. I'm like, do they not know they need to tap, or do they not? So I don't know how many people are just riding, but we tapped. We paid. And overall, it was just a great experience, and really nice to have that in our as an option, right? Because yes, it may take you the same amount of time to get to the airport, unless there's an accident or you run into some other traffic, which you can't always anticipate, but you can pretty much be guaranteed the train's going to stay on the track and it'll get you there at the same time every time. So anyway, yeah, overall a good experience.
Thank you.
Is there a question?
Yeah.
So Joe, I didn't know you were a Metallica kind of guy.
No, that was Metallica was a few days before.
Oh,
I
okay,
went to the Journey Def Leppard concert.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and Cheap
This-
Trick.
So I had a question for Chelsea, actually. So in terms of, I know our systems are going to be ready, our buses and our drivers, and we're all ready to go. There'll be a lot of people calling customer service. What have you done? What are we doing to handle that spike up for 3 or 4 days?
That's a great question. And I can partially answer that question and might have to defer to someone from customer care if they're here. But we did prepare questions and answers that we provided to that team so that they can more efficiently answer questions without kind of having to go back and forth and
Right,
get
right.
answers. And I know that we now have our ride store open on Saturdays. So that's another piece where there's more people working more days of the week to help answer those questions. And that will be great on September 14th when we launch our service for people there in person. I am not sure of any other changes that we have made to like call center hours, but I think having folks prepared so that we're not having to kind of go back and forth will really help with that volume of calls.
Yeah, that'll be the real test, that 2 or 3 days when it's all new, right? So, okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to say that that it's very impressive, the work that you've gone on, and to get such a green light report at this point in time, I think is exceptionally impressive, especially when we were earlier ones seemed as though we were having some concerns on whether the staffing was going to be there or not during the early phases of difficulties in the year when it was hard to hire. So kudos to everyone on this. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Take care. We'll move on to the security update with Roland to introduce the subject.
All right. Got my partner Scott here. Yeah, so this is we provided this briefing initially to the committee back in July. and then had a busy agenda last month. And we also wanted to take the opportunity to have a more comprehensive security update. So a number of you were able to go over for a tour of the Security Operations Center and also to see one of our buses over there. As I introduced Scott in his presentation, I just wanted to give a little bit of the broader context about our overall security effort. You'll recall that the key conversation in public transportation over the past few years as we come out of the pandemic is really trying to attract and retain that customer base back to the system and do that in an environment that has become more operationally challenging. And it's really about providing that clear sense of safety, both for the customers to attract them back and demonstrate that we have a safe space, but also for our staff, keeping them safe and secure while they're out there operating the system. And so we had some deep thinking about that as we came out of the pandemic and began to increase service levels again. And you'll recall that we made some intentional choices about building our own security force and supplementing the force that we contract with Snohomish County with this new transit security officer capability. It's also dovetails with the Security Operations Center, which some of you saw earlier today, and then some physical infrastructure capabilities, such as the operator barrier doors that we've been testing. We've done a lot of polling of the workforce and studying what our transit agency peers are doing. And now, as we shared earlier, we're now moving forward on an initiative to equip the entire fleet with those doors. And you'll see some of that as we bring the 2025 budget forward later this year. So it's all of a piece in terms of this focused effort on many fronts to ensure that we have a safe and secure system for both customers and employees. I also just briefly want to call out the partnership we've had with ATU in this work as well, particularly on caring for the operators, both in terms of highlighting the need, but also when these assaults do happen on our staff out in the system, and they do continue to happen, unfortunately, we have a very well stitched together effort in partnership with ATU to react quickly, to be present for those employees, to take care of them, to make sure they get the care they need, and then are able to integrate back in the workforce as quickly as possible. So that's also an element of this work. Scott and his team have also been involved in that as we really make sure that we are doing the best we can to take care of employees as they're operating the system. So a lot of new stuff to share. Scott's going to get into more detail on this about both how the TSO program is progressing, but also a lot about the data systems and the intelligence that we're using to really drive how we're deploying those resources on the system. So, Scott.
Great, thanks. I'm going to give this a shot. It's on. We'll see if it's working.
Cool.
Great, thank you. Thank you for giving him some time to give you an update. You may have noticed it's been a little while, and part of it for me was we were so close to having some really great news to share that I kind of asked, okay, can we wait a little bit? So some of that's going to be talking about the Security Operations Center, and thank you to the board members that came and did the tour today. Talk about our data collection efforts, and then how we're able to use that data collection to monitor and deploy our TSOs and their activity. By the way, you can see two of those good-looking guys back there. That's Ziad and Jacob in the back, keeping us safe tonight. There we go. So great news. We're really excited about this. The Security Operations Center is finally open. It opened on July 1st. You may recall this was a key component to our security enhancement strategic plan. Our ultimate goal was to have the SOC open 24/7. That's still on our list of goals, but we've really wanted to prioritize the safety during our service hours. And so the SOC is open 5 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week, and that includes holidays. And that's the coverage that our transit security officers provide. This really gives us that real-time situational awareness about what's going on. It does that in a couple of ways. One is a very robust camera system right now focused on our facilities, but we'll be expanding to some key bus stops and transit centers, and then eventually live views into our coaches. And this allows us to know what's going on, but also leverage that technology that if we didn't see something happen right at the moment, we actually use it as a DVR and we just back it up and we watch what happened, 5 or 10 minutes ago. So now we've got that information that we can pass on to our TSOs, to our transit police unit. Even we use it a lot of times just to get pictures of people who have violated our rules of conduct so that we can find them later and issue them a friendly exclusion. So a piece of the Security Operations Center is the Security Operations Center phone number. And so that has been around for a long time, but really hasn't been shared because we really had a commitment that somebody needed to be there to answer the phone. And so, except for 5 hours of the day, there's always somebody in the SOC answering that phone number. This is a great tool for not only our staff who may just have badging issues or security questions or need a door unlocked. There's all sorts of things like that, but also maybe even more importantly is giving the public the ability to report security incidents that are happening on our system. Prior to this number being out there and the SOC being open, the only way we ever found out about things were either somebody called 911, and then we may or may not find out about it because local law enforcement may respond and handle it, or it was reported by a coach operator, field supervisor, service ambassador through transportation dispatch. So it's a very kind of one-sided, very narrow, if you think about it, way to find out what's going on. So this gives our customers and even just citizens that may see something happening at one of our stops to be able to report that. Another great feature of this is the ability to text to that number. So that's really the kind of the latest and greatest as far as calling 911. Snohomish County has a text to 911 feature. We'll have something very similar. And so somebody safely and quietly is able to report something that's happening on one of the coaches. We've had, thank you, Mike and Art. We've had an effort to make bus numbers more prominent and easily visible inside of the coaches so that they can see which coach they're on when they're reporting this. Also, we've bought a system called Omnigo. It's got a records management system. It has a mobile app. We'll kind of get into that more a little bit, but we're able to be aware of TSO initiated activity and track that. So prior to the SOC opening, TSOs were going out and they were finding things and dealing with them, whether it be drug use or whatever, and they were just handling it. Nobody knew where they were and nobody knew what they were doing. And so there were some safety concerns. So now they have the ability to call that activity into the SOC. The SOC dispatcher is able to track what they're doing. And then they not only do we know what happened, where it happened, but we know how they handled it. So that's been a big piece. Again, that proactive monitoring of our security cameras, we don't want to just be reactive. We want to actually detect things that are happening. And so being able to leverage the camera systems to do that is an important piece of this. And then using the SOC to coordinate our response between the transit police unit, other transit partners, especially with this new closer tied relationship with Sound Transit and other CT departments. Thank you, Rachel. Probably have to, I think there's 3 slides on this one. There we go. So a little bit more about the Omnigo system. We launched this in May. It has a records management system, meaning that we write our reports through that. It tracks all of our dispatch calls and we get all the data from that. The officers can put some of their activities, they do that on their phones. They don't even need to call it out if they're just doing a coach check. That's just routine business for us. And so they're not calling that out but we're able to track that. Then the ability to create calls and dispatch those calls. Once the dispatcher creates a call, that information goes to that officer's phone and they've got the data right there on their phone. They can actually say when they've arrived on their phone, although we tell them they're not supposed to do that. And then they also have the ability to look up names and again, enter that activity on their mobile app. So it's pretty powerful. And then as you'll see in that bottom right picture, all of the apps use the GPS on their phones to be able to see their location. So we not only can see where they are at, especially if they were to call for help, they may not be able to say where they're at, but we'll be able to see and can send them help. But the other thing is that little red box, when we create a call for service, it puts it on our map. And so we can actually dispatch the closest transit security officer as opposed to just putting it out to anybody and having somebody maybe respond from the other side of the county when we have somebody that's just down the street. Thanks, Rachel. So here's some of that information that we were able to grab from our system. So we define dispatch calls for service as calls that right now that are just coming in through transportation dispatch. So these are reactive calls. And so over the last 4 months, we responded to 541 calls from transportation dispatch. But I think the more interesting number is the 754 proactive calls. These are incidents that the TSOs witnessed themselves, they discovered and took care of. So a whole, the whole gamut of things, from just somebody loitering or camping to drug use to assaults, all sorts of things that may happen. And so that's 754 calls we likely would never have heard about, and our customers are having to deal with, and the TSOs were being out there and observant and making our service safer. And then you can see about half of even those calls required written documentation. So we have a real effort to document our activity, not only to document what's happening, but how we handled it. And so that we make sure that we're handling things in the proper way and enforcing in an equitable way. Sorry, Rachel, I need you again. This is something that I think is really exciting. Responding to calls is one thing, but it's hard to put a number or a value on presence. And so there's some activity that we do is just all about having presence. And so you can see the number of bus stops. Those are what we're calling incidents, meaning that they log themselves out at the beginning of a bus check or coach check, and then they log themselves out. And so in that amount of time, we did 724 bus checks for about 100 hours of time spent doing that. The coach checks are where we're taking advantage of the Swifts, where they stop for 10 seconds. Most of the day it's 10 seconds. They'll board for 10 seconds, check the back of the bus, check the front of the bus, make sure everything's okay. If everything's fine, they get off. If everything's not okay, they'll either hold the problem off or hold the coach and deal with it. But we're able to board and have more presence on more coaches that way. And so it's a really powerful way to have that presence. We want to have the reputation that a TSO could be on a bus at any time, be a little unpredictable, right? Not sneaky, but unpredictable. And then we have our transit center and park and ride checks. We do this obviously quite often. And then leapfrogging is a little harder to do because it's when you have low numbers, you're basically away from your car. Coach checks is your car's just short distance away. Leapfrogging is where you make park at, say, Everett Station, and you board a coach and you ride for a couple stops and get off, and ride for a couple stops and get off, and you can see how they're leapfrogging through. So there's some value in that, but unfortunately, we don't get to do that quite as often as the others. So for that 4-month time, we did 4,800 presence events for almost 1,100 hours of presence out there. And again, I think it's hard to quantify what we have prevented from happening because of that TSO presence. So going forward, we're committed to being data driven. That has been kind of a mantra of ours and something that Roland had drilled into us very early in the program. And what this new system has allowed us to do is, rather than what I would call stone tablets and chisels to collect our data, we've actually got a robust data collection system where we can pull some meaningful data and use that to make not only staffing decisions, but also deployment decisions. So where do we put our people? What hours of the day do we have the most people? All those types of things, depending on what's happening in our service area, and not wanting to be stuck in our ways, but being flexible depending on what's happening at the time, so that we're using our resources to its most effective capability. Again, then the posting of these SOC phone number, that's going to be out as soon as the new phone system comes into play. And I think that's supposed to be later this month, maybe October. Then we'll start. Marketing and communications is ready to put placards on the buses and at the transit centers to get that number out there. It's already, if you see the TSO car driving around, it's already on the bottom of the car. And so we want to get that number out there. We're working with marketing right now on redoing the security webpage to also bring that number front and center. And then again, we continue to analyze our staff, like I said, as far as how many we will need, even looking into the future and how we effectively use the TSOs that we currently have. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Question?
Mayor question.
Mayor
Yeah,
Roberts?
yeah. Thank you, Scott. That's the second time I've heard this and it
Sorry.
gets more interesting each time. Maybe the third time will be the charm, so. It's pretty impressive actually in the tour we just took earlier. And it's clear to me that this is working. The transit police is working. And we have all of our systems. And when we started, it was mostly the transit police and then we're trying to get our security officers up and going. Now it seems like we're getting some footing and it's working. How are you interacting with the transit police now? I mean, it seems like there's kind of two systems now all of a sudden. How are you bridging that gap to communicate and
Yeah.
to escalate when it needs to happen?
Yeah, so I would call them overlapping systems. So one of the things we've done really effectively is that the TSOs and the transit police unit operate on the same radio frequency. And so the calls that come out can either go to either one could handle, or it's serious enough that only transit police should handle. And so we've made that distinction on who we give those calls to. So there's a lot of calls that transit police will just go handle on their own, and it's great. It's still very effective. There's others calls though, they like to have a criminal nexus to the types of calls that they're responding to. And so if you think about our rules of conduct, a lot of those aren't really crimes. They're just things we just need you to do in order to use our service or not do. And so that's where the TSOs fill that gap of responding to those types of calls. But then even our TSOs that are out there, I was listening to the radio today and one of our TSOs was out with a female that was being very verbally abusive. Transit police officer came on the radio and said, "Hey, do you need me over there? I'm going to head that way." The TSO was able to resolve it, but it was just a great example of knowing you have a person without having to go through 911 and get in line, knowing that you've got law enforcement there to support you is pretty powerful. And
So when this number gets published and everybody's using it, the call will come in to dispatch over here and dispatch will then decide whether it's transit police or our security officers. Is that how that works?
yeah, so the way it works, they'll come into the SOC. So the SOC dispatcher will answer the call, create the call, and then dispatch it. Our protocol says that if it's a routine call, we put it out to both transit police and transit security officers. But if it's a priority call, like involving a weapon or something like that, then we call 911 because we want the closest law enforcement, not just the closest transit police unit.
Right.
And then we dispatch transit police. TSOs may go that way, but they're not going to be the first responders to a call like that.
And they're using the same radio frequency.
They are,
So
yeah.
that's there's communication there and sort of dispatching, for lack of a better word.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any questions?
I know you said this a couple times, Scott, but it bears repeating again and again. The idea that our community sees people in a uniform out on the buses, on the roads, responding, says a lot about our system and how we're taking care of not just the community, but our employees, that we're there, that we've got their back and that we're being proactive. I really like the graphic that you showed, the proactivity. Before something escalates, before something's even happening, the idea of having people on the buses and just having a presence, I think says a whole lot to our community. It's not like we're there waiting for something to happen. We're just there doing a check-in and making sure that people know that if something happens, we're a heartbeat away. So I appreciate that.
You said that better than I did, by the way.
Oh, was that on camera? I was assaulting another board member on camera. Huh.
Other comments? Thank you very much for the update on that. And I truly enjoyed the look through the SOC this afternoon. So thank you for that. I did have one anecdote I wanted to share and then a question I wanted to ask, and that is that I know that the transit folks are taking a real hard look at sketchy characters because I got checked for my ticket 3 times on the orange line. But, so the data is beginning to come in, but it's early days. Do you have any just like testimonial on how well this is working, incidences that may have been avoided that we wouldn't have caught before or like that?
That negative performance data is really tough to capture. Like I said earlier, it's really tough to know what the TSO's efforts out there being visible is preventing. It's hard to capture that data, right? So I think what we'll see as if we have a good idea of the number of incidents that are going on now, I think as we're adding TSOs and increasing our presence, and we may be able to draw some correlations between increased TSO presence and even the number, if you saw the number of proactive calls, maybe we're not even finding that many incidents of violations out there because we're being more effective. There's certainly going to be other factors to that, but that may be one factor.
Well, I wanted to share one piece that I saw. I was chatting with a bus driver or one of the operators as I was riding along that had been on the Blue Line. He said it seemed to him like he was seeing the drug-related activity decrease since we were going on there. So I was looking for more like that. Looking forward to hearing more, and good luck. And I'm really glad we're doing this, as Mayor Frizzell said, that the public presence of this is helpful. And Mayor Marine may want to tell his folks that yes, the operators are checking tickets.
Could I add one thing?
Yes.
Just to be clear, those were not my phones. We all paid.
I was thinking I was giving those folks the benefit of the doubt that they might have paper tickets, but you never know.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. You can't tap a paper ticket, but I just, if I may, with regard to the security stuff, I know that, Councilmember Schweddy and I had just attended earlier in the day a real-time crime center that we're looking at countywide. And they use the flock camera system you probably are familiar with. And we were both thinking about, is there a way to, the less gaps there are in the web, so to speak, right? The better that we are. And do we have forward-facing cameras on our buses now? I know we do internally, but do we do anything that, for example, if it's in an accident, you would see that play? Okay. And so to the degree that might tie in, you've got buses going around the county all day. That might be something interesting to tie in. But since that was fresh on our minds, we just
real quick. The brief of it is it's a system that essentially reads license plates and checks that against databases to see if it's a stolen car or a missing person, and then reports that depending on how it's set up. Could be to local law enforcement or to an alarm center, but it's being put out, and I think the conversation was where it goes locally.
Yeah, and more cities. I know Arlington and Marysville, if you have them already, we're getting them, and so the system, and Lake Stevens, and so the system is being built out. And I'm just curious as to whether it would make sense if community transit was part of that, as a fact they've got cameras running around the community or around the county all day. So whether that would also help with that system.
Yeah, we haven't discussed that. It's fairly new technology.
Right. Thank you.
I was just going to add one thing to Scott's response to your question, Mr. Chair, about data. You may recall the board at the last meeting approved a research contract for customer surveys. And so one of the important sets of data that we'll be looking at is how customers are responding to the system. I can recall very early in my tenure here going over a customer survey that was focused on trying to understand the views and the experiences of people who had stopped riding the system during the pandemic. And there was obviously many of them, but something like 80% were willing to come back to the system and ride again if they felt safe and comfortable doing so. And so that metric around how customers feel about their experience on the system is critical. And we want to watch that data and see how it trends. And ideally, it's going to be trending up in correlation to our TSO and our TPU activity. But we'll build that trend data out and use it to inform our management responses. Of course, the other key metric is ridership. You know, are people using the system, and is that trend growing as well? And, you know, we can report that it is. You know, the riders are coming back and ridership continues to grow. So anyway, more to come on all this. It's a work in progress, but we're excited to do that work.
Thank you. Thank you, Roland. Scott, thank you. And encouraging to see this going forward. Okay, Chief Executive Report.
Thank you. I'll just roll right in. This will be a little bit shorter. We've had a lot of presentations today. Just want to highlight a few things that have been going outside the organization beyond what you've heard about here today. Last month was the third quarter Washington State Transit Association Conference, which was held in Kennewick, Washington. So we all got to decamp out to the Tri-Cities. This is one of the most fun conferences because it includes the rodeo. And we had a bunch of competitors enter the rodeo and advance to the state competition. And you may recall from 2023 that one of our drivers won, Matt Chomchak, and he re-entered to defend his title. And I'm happy to report that he did successfully defend his title and is once again the reigning 40-foot coach operator champion for Washington State. And he will be advancing to the national competition, which I believe is in Anaheim. Anyway, Austin, Texas. He'll be going down to Texas. So, you know, a real rodeo in a real rodeo state. How about that? Anyway, I was going to make a cow joke, but I won't. We also had 2 maintenance teams participate this year. We had taken a few years off during the pandemic on the maintenance side and entered 2 teams, and they sharpened each other. And one of our team, our A team, actually finished 3rd in the competition. And between Matt and the maintenance team, that means Community Transit finished 3rd overall in the team competition. So that was great, and it was really impressive to see the maintenance team actually get on the leader on the podium in their first year back in like 5 years. So we're excited to continue that tradition. It's really a morale booster, and it sort of exemplifies the standards we're trying to set in operations and maintenance. We also had actual work beyond that at the conference. I participated in a zero emission panel discussion and talked a little bit about what we're learning and how we're experiencing our journey with the battery electric and hydrogen fuel cell technologies, and had a real robust conversation and a lot of learning there about what's going on industry-wide. We also talked about our upcoming 2025 state legislative agenda. So we'll consider that and adopt it in the 4th quarter after all the individual jurisdictions do their work in that space. You heard about light rail opening. So we'll be back at the next board meeting with a full report on how the service change goes and keep you posted. And so I won't dwell on that further. There was an event, however, on Thursday last week prior to the light rail opening down at Union Station in Seattle. I was invited and joined the FTA administrator, Veronica Vanderpool, and a number of my peers to sign on to the Pledge for Equity and Infrastructure Project, EIP, which is an effort to get agencies like ours who have growing capital programs to work with their consultant and contractor primes to engage more small and disadvantaged business in the work. We're a medium-sized agency, so by comparison to, say, a Sound Transit or a WashDOT, you know, our program is relatively modest, but it's going to get up there into the $400, $500, $600 million range as we move into the Gold Line and the zero emission program. So there's an opportunity there for us to work with the prime contractors and our design consultants to really lean into creating opportunities for small business to participate in that work. And so we're excited to join that effort. I mentioned the budget earlier. So next month we'll present the proposed 2025 budget. We are in strong financial condition, in good shape to continue sustaining service growth and also keep working on our initiatives. So more to come there. The state auditors are wrapping up the final portion of the audit, the accountability audit. So you should look forward to seeing an invitation from Rachel soon to schedule the exit conference on that. We're hoping to get that done this month. In terms of the zero emission pilot itself, the battery electric bus is ready to go, and it's actually getting out on the road and is in testing. We need to do about 500 hours or so of testing on each of those buses before they can carry people. So the electric bus is out there. While we're waiting for our hydrogen fuel supplier to get their delivery vehicles certified, we were fortunate enough. Another thing I did at the WISTA conference was talk to my counterpart at Twin Transit in in Lewis County. And he was kind enough to send up a load of hydrogen for our fuel cell bus while we're waiting. So we've started getting the testing going on that vehicle as well, with a little help from our friends to the south. So we'll keep you posted on that. Gold Line, we finished the first phase of outreach and engagement earlier in August. We're working now on analyzing all the comments, and we'll do a full report on the Gold Line and the BRT program at the October meeting. And then we'll kick off the second round of public engagement after that, which will run through the end of the year. And lastly, we're now going to, once we get past network restructure, we'll be moving into preparations to launch the next 3 ZIP pilot projects, and we'll be doing that in the 4th quarter of this year. Our general approach is going to be to partner with each of those jurisdictions on existing events that they have planned to leverage community participation and highlighting the launch of that service. So as we get those plans in place, we'll be back here briefing you on those opportunities, and we'll look forward to that. We're generally going to try to do them one at a time instead of all in one day, so we can get individual focus on each of those jurisdictions. So more to come. That concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll move on to the committee reports. Sorry, you had a question?
Well, I was gonna.
Oh,
I
good.
did. On the zero emissions, and I know you said you were down in Tri-Cities. In Moses Lake, they are building a huge hydrogen fuel thing. That will be helpful to us, won't it?
If there's somebody who can bring it to us, that's the,
What is it not transferable? I mean, it doesn't ride in trucks or?
it does, but
trains or what?
it's not a simple matter. It's complicated to safely transport hydrogen over the road.
Oh.
So producing it on site, transporting it through pipelines is much more attractive, but the pipelines don't exist in this state. And so we're having to work with the supply industry to try to solve the logistics of how you get the fuel from where it's processed to here where it's going to be used.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the committee reports. The executive committee met on August 15th. Mayor Frizzell, Mayor Roberts, Councilmember Schweddy, and I attended. The CEO report was presented, as we just heard, and the next committee meeting is scheduled for September 19th at 11:30. Thank you. Mayor Roberts.
The Finance Performance and Oversight Committee met on Thursday, August 15th, 2024 in a Zoom format. Board members, Councilmember Jan Sweaty and I attended. In terms of consent items, the committee reviewed and recommended one item to the consent agenda: approval of the July 2024 monthly expenditures and payroll vouchers, and those will be items 7B through F on the consent agenda. In terms of reports, we had the sales tax report for July 2024. In July 2024, Community Transit collected approximately $16.7 million in sales tax revenue, approximately $555,000 less than budgeted. A copy of this report is in your packet. In terms of diesel fuel update report for July 2024, the average cost year to date through July 2024 was $2.90, $2.99 per gallon, while the average cost per gallon budgeted for 2024 was $4.25. This resulted in a favorable variance of $1.26 per gallon year to date through July. The next Finance, Performance, and Oversight Committee meeting is scheduled for 2 p.m. Thursday, September 19th, 2024 via Zoom. And I bet we have the budget coming down the road. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Roberts. Strategic Alignment and Capital Development Committee, Mayor Frizzell.
The Strategic Alignment and Capital Development Committee meeting was held remotely over Zoom on August 21st at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The meeting was attended by myself, Councilmember Daughtry, Mayor Marine, Councilmember Peterson, and Lance Norton, Labor Representative. The committee received 2 informational updates. Number 1 was the September 24 service change readiness, which was just presented at today's meeting. And the second update was a SWIFT program update. And that agenda item will be presented at the October board meeting. The next meeting for the Strategic Alignment and Capital Development Committee is scheduled for Wednesday, September 18th at 2 o'clock on Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor Sal. Moving on to the consent items, could I get a motion to approve the consent?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, today we have no action items, so we'll move on to the chair report. So I attended 2 events for the Link Light Rail this past week. The first was a pre-ride on Tuesday night. And so that was my first opportunity to ride the light rail in Snohomish County. And that was a lot of fun. A lot of people turned out, good speeches on that. And then Friday I went to the ribbon cutting, and it's been said before, but it was very exciting to do that. The people were feeling really good about it. There was a lot of energy around that, and what a crowd that was there. Mayor Roberts and I changed notes. He sent one and said it looked like a rock concert, and I had to agree with that. So my congratulations to Mayor Frizzell and the city of Linwood for putting on a most exciting and uplifting event, and also one that, at least from where I was standing, looked flawless. And I'm sure Mayor Frizzell was in charge of the weather because it was a perfect day. I was able to chat with a number of people that were there for differing reasons, and that was fun. Some simply there to witness a historical event. We had pictures in the Herald of a dad and his young children getting on to take that ride. We had metalheads on the way to the Metallica concert. We had Huskies going to the game, and then my special one was I ran into a former work colleague that lives over on Whidbey Island that was taking his son down to see the new aquarium in Seattle. And so he made the loop to Linwood to ride on the light rail for that first day. Also had a chance to visit the new ride store. And so congratulations to Molly and her team for bringing that all together, as has been mentioned before. And went in there to see it. It's a wonderful facility, and the staff was slammed with people in there, but they still carved out a few minutes to give us, several of us, an overview of the store and a small tour. Moving on, a reminder, the APTA Transform Conference is in Anaheim coming up at the end of the month, and several board and staff members are scheduled to attend that. And that's all I had. So we'll move on to board communications, and I think I will start my left with Mayor Frizzell, who's probably.
Yes, I'm still in the afterglow of it all. I have gone over to Sound Transit to the station most every day. Since then, I was there at 7 o'clock the next morning and just sat and appreciated all the hard work by the men and women that created the foundation and the concrete structures and the infrastructure and everything that goes with it, and wondered what an impact it will be, not just on us at this date and time, but on our children and those that come after. And even though it's the Linwood extension, Mount Lake Terrace and Shoreline are to be commended because their communities have been upended throughout, with any large construction project. You got all the delays, you have the traffic concerns, you have route delays, you've got property that's been reallocated to a big infrastructure project, but then you also have the opportunity to provide new housing, new resources, new businesses. And each of the cities have been able to do that, to say we want to make our cities the best that they can be. And it's a big catalyst for South Snohomish County to be able to do this and to do it well. And hats off to Sound Transit for partnering with the city of Linwood, with our Chamber of Commerce, with Snow Trans, and really create an environment where people were excited to be there. And I've never been to a rock concert, so I'm going to take your word on that, Tom. Sorry, I won't tell you the last concert I was at. But I've been to a couple Mariner games when they were really in the hunt, and I've been to some Seahawk games, and it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time because it was a win for South Snohomish County. It was a win for Sound Transit, and just as importantly, it's a win for community transit. As Kim mentioned a little bit earlier, it's great that the parking garage was as full as it was, but I'd like to see the buses as full as they can be, because the whole idea of climate change is not to see how many cars can come to Linwood and park in a parking garage. It's about getting vehicles off the road, and this organization today is all about that. And our emphasis on zero transmission is to be commended as we look for ways to really make a difference in our community. In my speech that I gave on Friday morning, I came to transit a realization of what transit could do through the eyes of my kids. I didn't think that I'd ever see real change in my lifetime. But as we look at it through the eyes of the next generation, we have to do that. We have to do it to really realize what it can be. And then how are we taking care of our communities? How are we providing housing so that we can have transit-oriented development that really is a game changer for people? How do we make life better for the people in our communities? And it's been an emotional time too. Few tears have been shed. So thank you to everyone here. And I went over to the ride store on Friday, and in all of the hubbub and all of the craziness of just masses of people at the ride store were just so excited that they were open and that they were connecting with people. And that was delightful to watch. So thank you to everyone at Sound Transit for being part of this journey for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Frizell. I'll move further left. Mayor Naring.
Yeah, I wasn't able to attend Friday, but the news coverage and the photos that I got from staff members that came looked like just a magnificent event. So kudos to you, Mayor Frizell and Rick, for community transit's heavy role in this. And it's just exciting to see this come to Snohomish County. I look forward to riding it here as I make my way down for some events in Seattle. So thanks.
Terrific.
Thank you. Mayor Roberts.
Testimony time here. So, you know, for me, it was a little surreal. I think some of you at the dais know that I was once a city council member a long time ago in Linwood.
Oh.
And when I was there, they were just first bringing plans to our work sessions. And it seemed like I'll never see this. I mean, this is so far out. I mean, 2023 and 2012 was a long ways out. But on Friday, as we were there, it just sort of dawned on me that it's here. I mean, it's one of those kind of things that's pretty interesting. And I don't really think we know quite yet what it really means to us. I mean, it's, we've, you know, been trying to birth this thing for a while, and the baby's got to grow up a little bit. And I think it's going to benefit everybody in Snohomish County, even those of us that live up north in the county. And we're looking forward to, one of the things I want to ride is the Express. I think it's a 902, isn't it? The 905, 902, whichever. From Stanwood to Linwood to City, we call it City Center?
City Center.
City Center Park and Ride now. City Center Station. So I just really hats off to everybody here, and we still have a game to play, don't we? And so it'll be, we'll really be able to celebrate next board meeting, right? So thanks to everybody just to working together to make transit work better in Snohomish County. Thank you.
Councilmember Schwede.
Actually, I have a question. Tuesday night, that was the invite only night, but there was a whole bunch of staff from Community Transit. And at one point, they gathered us all together and took photos, but you know, and all the photos I looked at all weekend, I never saw that. So if somebody out there has one, if you would pass it on to us.
Well, I did go on Friday. Yeah, I did go on Friday and I did go to a rock concert and they're very different. The rock concert was much louder. I can't still quite hear. But they were both fun, right? And they were both exciting and for completely different reasons. And sitting there as a lot of people in this room that were there and listening to all the speeches, and it was interesting because it was like over an hour, but it went quick. It never really, to me, wasn't boring. I was really interested in what everybody was saying. And one thing that struck me, and I was talking earlier about the fact that we thank really all of the people that had a part in this and all of the construction and over the years and the engineers and the architects. And I mean, there's so many aspects to make this a reality. But I don't know that really we stop to thank the voters and the taxpayers, because without either of those, it would have never happened.
Sure.
We need to sometimes stop and go, you know, we've been paying for what, 30 years in Snohomish County, and it was a long wait, I think worth it, again, having had the opportunity to write it. So that was just something I want to make sure we remember, all the people that pay the taxes all the years to make that happen. And then finally, we have our Lighthouse Festival this weekend. It's going to be gorgeous. Maybe the last nice weekend this year. We don't know, but just pretend it's for your last good weekend and come down to the Lighthouse Festival. And you can catch the 117. It'll take you right to the water, because we don't have light rail in Mukilteo yet, or the Zip. However, we do have the 117. So come down and enjoy. It's going to be beautiful out, and we're going to have a great weekend.
What time is that running?
It starts Friday at about 4 and ends Sunday at about 3, but it's, if
An overnight deal?
yeah, you just come and camp out at the beach. If you're gonna have one day, Saturday is your best, because that's when we have the fireworks at night.
Okay.
And they're at about, 8:39, whenever it gets dark. So Saturday is the best night.
Just bring your sleeping bag and you're fine. So Mayor Frizzell happened to mention that she has been to a rock concert, and I had to think about that for a second. And some of the last concert I went to was a John Denver concert. So that might be dating myself a little bit, but kudos to everybody on what's happening with Sound Transit heating in Glenwood. Mayor Frizzell, congratulations. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there, but I had a flooding problem I had to take care of. And I wish I could have been there, but those things happen. And that's all I got.
Rep Norton?
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to our remote attendees. Councilmember Fulcher? I don't see her. Okay. Councilmember Dunn is not here. Councilmember Payne?
Thank you. I just want to say, I was there on Friday and I took the link down to the South Shoreline stop and then turned around, came back home, back to Linwood. I am so excited for this. It was such a great program, and it was just good to see that this major piece of infrastructure, as everybody's talked about, and CT's been a big part of it too, as you know, one of the bigger partners in this whole project, to make it work for the communities. We now have regional transportation, which is so exciting. So thank you everyone and all the staff that made this work and all the fun. So many people talked about how much fun it was to have all the good stuff that happened, both with the Orange Swift Line startup and then with this event. So thank you everyone, and great job all the way around.
Thank you. Councilmember Peterson?
Yeah, thanks. I was there Friday, and then I was there Friday evening to pick up my wife, who was flying in, and she took light rail up from the airport. And just as a quick story, she was standing there on a very busy train, and there was young people standing next to her. And I think she said she thinks they got on maybe in Roosevelt, maybe a little further south. And they had never been to Snohomish County.
Yeah.
And they were like, wow, this is a whole new, and they got up towards, and as they were looking out the window, they said, oh, look at all the trees. I guess that's why the word wood is in Linwood. So not only is it making our life easier to get down into Seattle or down to a baseball game, but we're going to have a whole new crop of people coming up and seeing what we have to offer up here. So, but that was good.
Yeah.
A great job, everybody.
Councilmember Matsumoto, right? Or excuse me, Mayor Matsumoto, right?
Thank you. I have to say that I came to Snohomish County in 1962 when I was 12 years old from Tokyo, Japan. And I was expecting transportation to be just like back in Japan. And if you can go back to 1962 in Snohomish County, there was nothing.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh. And then 1968, I graduated from high school, and we vote down the first light rail vote. And so I'm thinking now, when are we ever going to get anything up here? And here it is. When I first started working on light rail with Mountain Lake Terrace, I also thought that it's not going to happen in my lifetime. And I had to pinch myself on opening day and on the preview ride because I'm alive and I'm riding this light rail. And it was just really surreal. So I have to thank everybody involved, including community transit. And oh my gosh, I don't know what more I can say that everyone else hasn't touched on, but this is exciting. And I'm really, really happy and excited for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Mead.
Thank you. Yeah, nothing for me.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Gallagher. Superb accomplishment. Okay. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to, we have no executive session today. That brings us to the end. I'll just wrap up by saying the excitement has not stopped with the light rail. We got a four side into that coming up, so more to come. That being said, meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Yeah.